First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not paying for my cousin's wedding despite ruining it by having a mental health crisis? My favorite cousin was supposed to get married last year, but postponed to this year with only close family and friends invited, a total of 30 people. I was excited to go, as I live alone and my parents died when I was in college, so I try to make family a priority when I can. At the wedding, my aunts kept picking at me for being single, as family does when you get to your mid-20s with no partner, and something in my brain apparently broke. I don't fully understand what happened, but I started crying, just inconsolable weeping. I remember slumping to the ground crying, but after that, it's like my brain just shut off. I don't remember saying anything, but according to my relatives in the hospital, I kept rocking and crying. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital feeling very calm. They kept me overnight, but released me saying it was just a panic attack. My cousin's wedding did not go well because of, well, that happening. In a wedding with 30 people, one person having a not minor mental health crisis is very hard to cover up or hide, and it derailed the events. She and her new husband are now raging that I ruined their wedding, and now owe them the cost of the wedding. I said no. I didn't intentionally ruin their wedding. I had a terrifying mental health incident that I am seeking care for. I've never had anything like that happen before. I get nervous sometimes, but it's never been like that. I don't even like crying in front of people. I am trying to seek therapy, but the closest appointment I can get is 6 months from now. Also, I don't have the money to pay for an entire wedding. Yes, I have savings, but I have to save that for the possibility of something happening in my own life because I'm the only person I really have. Obviously, the breakdown that happened at her wedding was over-emotional way of putting it. But the truth is that I am unlikely to ever find someone. I'm 25 years old. I have to take time to get my mental health in check. And even if I was 100% fine, there's no way for me to meet anyone now anyway. I only have myself. Everyone in my family has partners and a family. I'm completely alone. I mean, I even had to Uber home from the hospital because I don't even have parents anymore as they passed 3 years ago, and you don't get closer to your cousins by going crazy around them. They are now threatening me with being cut out of the family. I told them they were only proving my point, and have put everyone on mute since. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. You don't owe them the cost of the wedding. That's ridiculous. If a guest had a heart attack at the wedding, I doubt they would ask them for money. Your complete breakdown did ruin their day though. Edited to add, if you didn't want your mental health remarked on, then the post should have read, Am I the a-hole for not paying for my cousin's wedding when I had a medical emergency during the event? However, friends and family lose their sympathy quickly when an ill person, or addict, will not get help. The way you described the wedding event suggests that you need professional help with this ASAP. Already needed it prior to this, really. You say you are trying to seek therapy, but there are many therapy options even in COVID, and your family may be reaching their breaking point supporting you. Leave them aside for the moment and focus on getting yourself the help you need. Yes, I agree with this. OP, you say nothing like this has happened before, but it sounds like you had mental health problems before that perhaps you weren't taking care of. You're catastrophizing even in the post. There's no way for me to meet anyone now anyway. This is just ridiculous. You're 25. You don't live on Mars. You have access to the internet and presumably a job. Get the help you need. Okay, I'm going with a very gentle everyone sucks here. Your aunts suck for picking on you for being single. At 25, you are not an old crone. You absolutely have time to find someone. Not that there's an age limit on love. My great-grandpa got remarried at 86. Also, it's rude as hell to make fun of people for their relationship status at any age. Your cousin sucks for expecting you to reimburse the whole wedding. That is ridiculous. Everyone that isn't you sucks for not removing you from the situation. You should have been escorted from the room to get some space and allow the rest of the guests, and the bride and the groom, to continue enjoying themselves. You suck for two things. Your attitude and love. Seriously, at 25, you are not destined to always be alone. Get a grip. And for not leaving the space when you started crying. I have had many panic attacks, and I've been able to leave the space before breaking down. Obviously, everyone's mental health is different, but once it was clear you were getting very upset, you should have excused yourself. Again, this is a gentle everyone sucks here because panic attacks can catch you off guard, especially if this was your first. Not the a-hole for not paying, not the a-hole for an unavoidable crisis. But your whining about being single makes me think you aren't actually being apologetic to them and are taking a woe me attitude. You did ruin their wedding, and your breakdown is what everyone is going to remember about it. The least you could do is not make the aftermath about you too. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my mom a terrible parent and temporarily running away after learning she listens to my therapy sessions? A little bit of context. I, 17 male, just started therapy because I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed and I relapsed into some bad habits. My mother, 48 female, is quite the traditional woman, and it took a lot of convincing because she thinks therapy is for crazy people. Anyways, I have been talking to my therapist for about a month now, and it's really helped me open up about a certain thing I wasn't comfortable with, like my dad's alcohol addiction, etc. My mom and dad are separated. So one day, I mentioned that my mom can be a little too much, and she forces me so much I cry myself into sleep for weeks because she keeps criticizing me. After I came home from that, my mother was looking a little angry, and I asked her what happened. She started screeching that I was an ungrateful brat, and that if I have a problem with her, I should say it to her face. She then started to call me some horrible names, and saying that I didn't appreciate her enough, that I'm, and I quote, nothing like she imagined me growing up. That was the last straw. I just got angry and told her she was a terrible mom and packed my bags to crash at a friend's house not far away. By the way, my friend is okay with it. She knows sometimes my household isn't safe and she's very welcoming. So, I actually have been thinking, and I think I might be a little bit of an a-hole here, because I do feel ungrateful, and I do think that she might have been a little right. After all, she escaped from my abusive dad, and I feel like I might overreacted by leaving her for now, but this is eating me alive. Edit. I don't know how she heard what I said at the therapy session, but knowing her and my past experiences, it is very likely she snooped around on purpose. Not an a-hole at all. Therapy is private time to talk about what hurts your mental health. It was way out of line for her to listen, and even more so to lash out at you for it. Do you know how she listened in? Not an a-hole. Please inform your therapist of what happened. Not an a-hole. Your mother was absolutely wrong from start to finish here. 1. Criticizing you to the point that you cry yourself to sleep. 2. Spying on your therapy sessions. Not sure how this happened, but it is a horrifying invasion of privacy. 3. Blowing up at you for your feelings. You are entitled to your feelings and to express them, even if someone wishes you felt differently. 4. Insulting you and telling you that you're nothing like she imagined. That is wildly unacceptable, arguably abusive behavior. This behavior sounds like that of someone who is emotionally abusive. You mentioned that your father was also, but that doesn't rule out her being mistreating to you. You, in contrast, have been great. You did all the right things, from talking to your therapist to leaving the house when the mistreatment escalated. Your mother is supposed to care for and protect you, that instead, she's hurting you. You should be damn proud of the fact that you are caring for and protecting yourself. And keep doing it. That guilt you feel? That's the desired consequence of her manipulative, abusive behavior. Acknowledge it and then reject it as BS. You're good, kiddo. Keep taking care of yourself. You deserve it. Not the a-hole. Therapy sessions are confidential for exactly this reason. So you feel safe discussing any topic you wish without the fear of any repercussions. What your mother did was a horrible violation of your privacy and your trust, and, ironically, proved the point you were making to your therapist. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my brother's funeral? So, some background. I, 23 female, had an older brother, Lance. He was 8 years older than me, and he absolutely despised me. Ever since the day I was born, he hated my guts and set out to make me as miserable as possible. Reason being was because he hated having a sibling, especially a sister, and was happy being an only child. To say that he was a bully is a major understatement. Our parents initially ignored it, as they thought it was just normal sibling rivalry. But when I was 5, they finally looked into his behavior and tried their very best to correct it. Nothing worked though. He got only worse and worse and meaner. One incident stands out in my mind. I was 6. He locked me out of the house when there was a tornado warning. Out of all the things he's done to me, that was the worst. Because there actually was a tornado on the ground and it almost hit our neighborhood. When I was 10, he graduated high school and moved out. The last thing he said to me before he left was that I was worthless and would amount to nothing. Thankfully, that was the end of his days of bullying me. In the past 13 years that have passed since Lance moved out, we've only seen each other on a couple of occasions, one of which being his wedding, and he ignored me in all of them. Didn't even acknowledge my presence. He has 2 sons who I don't even know or were even introduced to. He told me that I would never amount to anything and was worthless. Well, I'm in nursing school hoping to fulfill my dream of becoming a nurse, and I have a wonderful doting boyfriend. Well, 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from my mom. Lance was coming home from work and he lost control of his car and wrapped it around a streetlight. By the time the ambulance got there, he was already gone. I only felt heartbroken for my parents because you should never have to bury your child, but I felt nothing towards him. I made it clear to my parents that I was not going to Lance's funeral. Not after his years of bullying. They were not happy. They begged me to go, saying that I need to be the bigger person. He's dead and can't hurt me anymore. I need to be there for them, and I don't know the pain of losing a child. I understood how they felt, but he never once apologized for all these years of mistreatment. Not one word of remorse or regret. They tried insisting that he was a changed person, but I stood my ground and did not go. My abuser did not deserve my grief or my presence. If he had apologized, then I might have attended, but it didn't. My parents were absolutely furious that I didn't show up, and announced that they will never speak to me again, and they haven't since. My boyfriend stands by my decision, but I've been getting nothing but backlash from other family members saying I should have just swallowed my pride and went to Lance's funeral. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He is gone now. You never owed him anything. Not attending his funeral has changed your relationship with your parents. He was their son, but he wasn't your brother, and I hope that someday they can understand why you chose not to attend. This is the hill you chose to die on, so be prepared to not speak with your parents for some time. A dead a-hole is still an a-hole, not an a-hole. Not an a-hole. It was nearly no a-holes here, but your parents choosing to lose both children over this tipped the scale. Funerals are for the living. Your parents needing your support there isn't a surprise. They are grieving in a way that isn't comprehensible to those who have never experienced such a loss. You, though, have zero obligation to go to your brother's funeral. In time, I hope your parents come back around and they process their grief. Opie's parents' actions make it fairly obvious he was the golden child and she was the scapegoat. Even in death, he is more important than Opie. Are they really willing to lose you too over this? Then not an a-hole, because they obviously don't care a bit about you. They were willing to risk losing her when they chose not to protect her the first 5 years of her life, or do anything when he tried to end her as a little girl. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for making my 19-year-old cry because I said we have nothing in common, and that's why we aren't close? My daughter 19 and I, 40 female, live together. She's in online college, so home all the time. We are total opposites. I am a girly girl, she is a sweats and throw hair up in a bun type. She is into anime, which I try to watch with her, but it's the most annoying thing ever. She also loves comics, so I did learn about them when she was younger. Basics like Supergirl and Superman are cousins, etc. So we sort of talk about that, but it's hard because she knows so much and I don't. I used to do a mother-daughter book club with her, but she kinda didn't want to do that when she was in high school. So the other day, she said she wanted to talk. She said she was upset that we didn't have a mother-daughter bond. I told her I love her very much, and I'm sorry she feels like that. She said other mothers are super close to their daughters, and I pointed out that they have common interests, do spa days, make up together, etc., and we don't have that much in common. She started crying and won't talk to me. My ex called and yelled at me, saying I'm a horrible person. Takes her to fix furnaces and stuff, and suggested I do stuff like that, and I told him I barely know what a furnace looks like and can barely use a hammer, so it's a bit hard to bond over home improvement. My cousin also called and yelled at me. I feel bad, but I have tried, and I love her and support her, so I'm not sure what else I can do. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. If you had followed up that you have nothing in common with, but let's work together to explore things we both like and do those things as mother/daughter, then my opinion may have been different. No a-holes here. If most of your activities aren't for her and vice versa, as you detailed above, there is a third option. That said, no one is forcing you to be close, but if it's something you both want, then it seems that you have some work to do. Just my opinion. No one is forcing you to be close. I mean, she is her mom, so she does have an obligation as a parent to have a healthy bond with her daughter. You're the a-hole. You're not the a-hole because you struggle to find things in common with your teenage daughter. You're the a-hole because your daughter desired something meaningful and relevant. She reached out to you and expressed herself maturely and respectfully, and you shot her down with a flimsy, and frankly lazy, excuse. Your child made herself vulnerable to you, and you dismissed her because she's boring to you. Not your exact words, I know, but I guarantee that's how it came across. Go back to your daughter and say something along the lines of, our conversation through me because we're interested in such different things. Let's find a way to make that work for us. Let's plan something around, insert one of her interests here, then we'll try insert one of your interests. Make an effort as her mother. Don't be lazy about this. Or they could make a list of new interests that they can explore together. Things that neither of them is currently involved in, so that is not a my interests versus your interests struggle. It sounds like the daughter likes working with her hands and mom is a girly girl. Maybe there's an art or a craft that they could both learn? First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my half-brother use the land I inherited as a venue for his wedding? I'm male 36, got married in 2017. My wife and I are not rich, and we couldn't afford a fancy wedding, so my dad hosted my wedding at his house. Mom and dad are divorced, and I lived with my stepdad and half-brother for years. We didn't invite a lot of people. Again, we couldn't afford a huge menu and more chairs and tables. But my mom insisted that I invite my stepdad and half-brother. And we did. Everyone was happy and excited for us, except my stepdad and half-brother. My half-brother openly made comments about the tables/chairs and made fun of my cheap suit and wife's wedding dress. Complained that the food was ordered from a crappy restaurant. While his dad was laughing out loud from behind, my in-laws were literally staring as he basically called my wedding a joke. Not to mention trash-talking my dad and saying that he was living in filth and the backyard was in fact a dumpster. I was so mad and my wife looked so upset. And we both were so embarrassed because he and his dad were both laughing and being rude. My mom did nothing. I tried to be civil, but at that point, the wedding was already ruined. I got contact with them both after they made my wedding a crap show. Mom said I overreacted and defended them, saying they were probably drunk. My dad was hurt as they openly offended him at his house. Unfortunately, my dad passed away 1 year later. It was devastating, and it was a lot for me to take. Neither my stepdad nor half-brother showed up at the funeral. I don't know why I'm not surprised. I inherited a piece of land from my dad that I put money on and made it a nice place for family get-together. Dad's family to be specific. My half-brother is getting married soon. My mom showed him pictures of my land and he suggested using it as a venue for his wedding. So my mom called and told me to visit. I went to see her and I saw my half-brother there, along with stepdad. I was already leaving when he asked me to use the land I inherited from Dad as a venue for his wedding. He went on about what decorations he was going to use, and he said his fiancée saw the pictures and liked it a lot. I told them no. My mom told me to stop being rude and sit down and talk like an adult. I told them no, I won't be letting him use my property after what he did. My mom defended him, saying he didn't mean it and was just messing around. He ruined a once-in-a-lifetime event for me and didn't care, so I still refused. I got into an argument with them, and I left after I was called bitter. My mom never stopped texting telling me to help out my brother. She shamed me and called me selfish. She's now reaching out to my wife, telling her to convince me to agree. I was surprised his answer wanting to talk to me about it as well. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your stepdad is a bully who raised his son to behave the same way, and your mother is an enabler. You have absolutely zero obligation here, no matter how many flying monkeys they send in. Not the a-hole. Also, letting someone use your property as a wedding venue is a big ask. Where will everyone park? They will likely need portable potties, tents, lots of electricity, landscaping. Large trucks will need to drive through your property, garbage removal and cleanup, and on and on. Even if you miraculously end up not having to take care of any of it, you will need special insurance, possible liquor licensing, and they will need access to your property for at least 3 days. And there will be damage to your land. You cannot have that much activity on any property without some damage. Not an a-hole. You don't owe your brother anything, especially since you weren't close and he couldn't even attempt to show empathy for your loss or remorse for his hateful comments that clearly hurt you. The fact that my mom is actually trying to talk to my wife about it shows how much she disregards my opinions and my boundaries as an adult. He knows what he did and feels no remorse. And his dad too. Not an a-hole. Your mom sucks. I'm sorry. Mom definitely bites moose farts. Not an a-hole. And hope he should just go no contact since the mom and the family feel so entitled. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my in-laws the whole story about my family? I, 24 female, met my husband in college. We got married 2 years into our relationship. I met his parents the first Christmas we spent together, and I have a pretty good relationship, I would say. They asked me that first year about my family, and I told them I didn't have one. This is kind of true, but not technically. You see, I was the product of an affair my father had. My mother was an addict and OD'd soon after I was born. My father and his wife took me in, but I was treated as less than by everyone in the family. It didn't help that I was born into the middle of their family. I have 4 older siblings and 3 younger half-siblings. None of them wanted me in their lives because they were all told I was the product of an affair. My father was forgiven though. His wife made sure the kids didn't blame him, just me. My grandparents didn't want to lose my father and their other grandkids, so they kept quiet, and her family never had any reason to accept me. I was kicked out before my 18th birthday and was kinda alone. A friend's family took me in, and they're the reason I did go to college. But I don't have family. I never told my in-laws this and they assumed all my family had passed away. I never corrected them or gave any kind of truth to them until they found out it wasn't quite true. After a childhood friend made a post about my family on Facebook and my husband's family saw it. They asked what that was about and were hurt I would at least be a bit more clear that the people were still alive and just not good. I said I found it easier not to talk about it. My husband's sister is the most angry because she claims I lied to them, and anyone who claims they don't have families claiming they lost them. My husband told them and the rest of his family that I didn't owe them my story. Am I the a-hole? I feel bad now for not making it a little clearer. I wasn't expecting it to hurt their feelings. Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. You don't have to tell your trauma to everyone, even your husband's family. It's up to you when you share certain stuff. And you clearly didn't feel the need to share this horrible part of your past. Your family, though, they're big-time a-holes. Yeah, it has taken almost 5 years of therapy for me to not blame myself for what happened with my biological family. For a long time, I was so sure it must have been partly, if not mostly, my fault. I'm very sorry to hear that you originally blamed yourself, even 1%. You are no way, no how, to be blamed for the actions of petty and hateful adults. I'm so glad you no longer blame yourself. The last thing you need is to yet again take responsibility for the poor and abusive choices of your family. Not an a-hole. You don't owe them anything, and it sounds like your husband is understanding, so that should be enough. It is your story to tell, that's it. Hopefully they will get over it with time, but it isn't your job to make their feelings feel better. If you feel comfortable explaining and want to, that's great. Otherwise, your husband can tell his family you aren't going to talk about it until you're, if ever, ready. Not an a-hole. I completely agree with this comment. You shouldn't have to tell them anything you don't want to. I had a brother who passed away when I was 15. I started dating my partner at 18 and have been with him for 7 years. I am still yet to tell his family about my sibling, and he respects that completely. This means that I have had to lie to his parents in some situation, but I simply don't feel comfortable talking about it or having people know. I do hope that if they ever find out, they'll be more understanding than your in-laws were. Your husband is right. I'm sorry that another family showing some ugly colors to you. Not an a-hole, and I hope your in-laws wise up and mind only the business you're comfortable sharing with them. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not including my sister in a family photo? I, 32 female, got married 4 years ago. My younger sister, 30 female, didn't attend because my wedding had a no children condition. At the time, my other siblings, 4 older brothers, 1 older sister, also had young kids, but all of them attended my wedding. My younger sister was the only one who chose not to. Her son was 14 months old at the time. She didn't want to leave him. I tried to accommodate by saying I could book a hotel room. I got married in a hotel ballroom, so that she could leave her son with her mother-in-law in the hotel room and check on him regularly. Her mother-in-law didn't mind, but my sister refused. I also offered to pay for a babysitter, but that was shot down as well. She didn't seem to want any option other than bring her son to the wedding. She ended up not attending my wedding. My wedding went off without a hitch. Aside from her, everyone else from my family was there. I even had cousins, uncles, and aunts who traveled in from different countries to attend my wedding. After the wedding, I went no contact with her. She tried to pretend like she didn't skip the wedding and that our relationship would go back to normal. Obviously, it did not. The next 3 years, we did not have any communication. Last year, we reconciled after our dad begged us to. She apologized and said she was suffering from extreme anxiety and didn't want to be away from her son. We buried the hatchet and moved on. On to the issue. My husband and I are finally buying a house, so I went and printed several of my wedding pictures to put up in the house. I printed a picture of my parents and siblings with my husband and I on our wedding day and framed it. It is going on our living room wall. My younger sister isn't in the picture as she didn't attend the wedding. She is upset because she was excluded in the picture. She wants me to Photoshop her into the picture, and I said no. If she wanted to be in the picture, she should have made the effort to attend my wedding. I have already printed the pictures and don't want to reprint. Adding her in by Photoshop may compromise the quality of the pictures. Those are the reasons why I said no. She claims that I'm punishing her by doing this. I do have other pictures of her plus our family that I'm intending to put up in the house, but my wedding pictures are my favorite and the main attraction. My family have mostly stayed out of the drama, but my older sister did say she thought I was being petty. Am I the a-hole? After the wedding, I went no contact with her. You went no contact with your sister because you chose to have a child-free wedding and she chose to stay with her 14-month-old instead? Yeah, you suck. Big time. Don't have child-free weddings if you're not prepared for people with children and reasons for not wanting to leave their children to not come. I printed a picture of my parents and siblings with my husband and I on our wedding day. My younger sister isn't in the picture as she didn't attend the wedding. She's upset because she was excluded in the picture. She wants me to Photoshop her into the picture and I said no. This is, in a word, completely freaking ridiculous. You both qualify for that adjective. Everyone sucks here. Both of you need to get over yourselves. Talking about life is too short. I've seen a few posts here lately of I had a child-free wedding and I'm angry at the people with kids who did not attend. It doesn't work that way. You can choose a child-free wedding if you want, but that means there are consequences of people who cannot attend, especially people with kids under 2. I think the sister is being a bit absurd with the Photoshop request, but OP is much, much worse. You're the a-hole. I was going to say everyone sucks until I read your responses and I decided you're way worse than your sister. A wedding invitation is not a summon. People, especially people who are suffering from anxiety and other illnesses, are free to decline. You had the right to make any conditions on attending your wedding that you chose. Invitees are free to decline. You are clearly still stuck on your wedding as the event of the century and still making an issue of the fact that your sister didn't attend. Her wanting to be photoshopped into the picture is ridiculous. But I bet these pictures are another stick you used to beat her up for not attending your wedding. Get over it. Hey, her wedding is now the main attraction in her new house. All other family pictures will go up, but are trash compared to her in all her glory. This wedding will live forever this way. /sarcasm. Everyone sucks here. You are absolutely allowed to have a child-free wedding. However, you really can't get offended if people with children then choose not to come. Going no contact over it makes you the a-hole. However, the reality is she wasn't at your wedding, and expecting you to change your wedding photo also makes her the a-hole. A wedding is usually a once-in-a-lifetime event. If someone chooses not to attend it, does send a very damning message that they don't care about you. I respect her reasons for not attending, but I still felt like she didn't value our relationship as sisters and was very hurt over it. We're okay now. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for stealing the spotlight at my best friend's wedding? So 2 days ago, my best friend contacted me to be her wedding singer. The original one canceled on the last minute because he had a tonsillitis, and the wedding would be tomorrow, yesterday. So I accepted it. I can sing, but I'm into upbeat music, so I asked her if it's fine to sing pop. She said she actually preferred if I'll sing pop music. She even requested to make it explosive that she will suddenly forget she's being married. So since she's a K-pop fan too, and I recently just learned a new one along with the choreography, I decided to perform that instead. It is called Can't Stop Me by Twice. It is a high and loud song with very hard choreography. So the performance happened. I gave it my all. I sang energetically and showcased my explosive dance moves. Her groom, however, didn't like it. Actually, most of the visitors, who are mostly groom's relatives, didn't. His mom even scolded me in private, saying I ruined the solemnity of the event. My best friend apologized because she didn't expect that her in-laws and husband would hate it. But I think it is her right to ask for the song she wants because she's the bride. But then the groom is also a part of this and he also deserved what he wanted. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I didn't know wedding receptions were meant to be solemn. Thought they were supposed to be a big party to celebrate. No, I think you're confusing them with funerals. Maybe it was a funeral for the groom's mom? She even requested to make it explosive, that she will suddenly forget she's being married. Info. Yikes. Maybe the friend meant that it should be so awesome and would like they're at a concert the OP is putting on, not just the wedding singer crooning away. I hope so anyway. Yeah, my friend dislikes serious ambience after all. Actually, she really didn't want a solemn wedding and wear a wedding dress, but she had to follow the tradition. Not the a-hole. You did what your friend asked, and neither of you expected the response that happened. It would be a different matter if you deliberately performed it, knowing it would be disapproved of, but you didn't. You were just trying to help out your friend. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving up my room because my half-sister wanted it as a Christmas gift? I, female 16, live with my mom and her husband. My mom and dad divorced when I was 2, and she and her husband had another kid, my half-sister, 14. I visit my dad here and there, but not often due to him traveling a lot for work. Recently, I've grown into liking anime and other things, so I asked my mom if I could rearrange my room. It was super plain and depressing at first, so it felt good to add color and lots of decorations, posters, LED lights, pictures. It took nearly 3 weeks, but it came out super nice, and it overall makes me a lot happier to be in. Last week, my half-sister went into my room while I was visiting my dad to celebrate Christmas early, and she told her dad she wanted my room because it looked nice to her. When I came home, my mom told me about her wanting my room, and I said no. She said it would mean a lot to my half-sister, and I could take her room and redecorate that one. I said no again, and that if she really wanted a room like mine, she could decorate her own herself with their help. My mom said she was just a kid and wouldn't be able to do all the decorations like I did, and it would be simple if I just redecorated the other room. I was angry. My mom would even suggest I give up my room I worked hard for, and even spend my own money on everything but the paint. Her husband offered to give me money to decorate the other room without spending my money, but I still declined. My mom called me a brat and said I was almost 17 and should grow up, that I wouldn't be in the room any more than another 2 years, so it wasn't a big deal to give it up. Her husband called me selfish and said I was crushing his daughter's feelings and that was the only thing she wanted for Christmas. His words were, Opie, how could you crush your little sister's dreams and be so selfish? I get it's just a room, but I still don't think it's right that I have to give up something I worked hard for because she went into my room without my permission, something they didn't even care to acknowledge. My mom has been trying to convince me to give her the room, and I said if she takes my room then I'll remove all the decorations. She has been mad at me for nearly 3 days now, and I feel like an awful person for letting it get to this extent. Am I the a-hole? Editing to add. My sister isn't willing to decorate her room with me. I've offered, and she said no. She just wants my room for I don't know what reason, and I refuse to decorate her entire room by myself. Now for the top judgment. Not the a-hole. 1. Don't sell yourself short. It's not just a room. It's your space, your hard work, and your passion. 2. Your mom has it backwards. You only have another 2 years in the room, so it's actually a big deal to give it up. 3. Your mom's husband has it backwards. Your little sister is the one being selfish. 4. Disregarding the original owner's hard work and wishes and taking something away from that person shouldn't be labeled a dream in any situation. They're distorting everything. You're not an a-hole in the least. I'm sorry this is happening to you. All of this, I'm so confused about this. Like, why don't they just give them the money and ask Opie to decorate sister's room for her? Problem solved. Why would they go to the route where they hurt one child? Sister Yet is 14. She maybe doesn't understand that she didn't want a physical room. She wants cool decorations. But parents are old enough to know that decorating sister's room is all that is needed. I can't imagine what makes your little sister think she's entitled to your room. Hint, the parents. Not an a-hole. What the hell? It's your room. I don't even get why switching the rooms was an option in the first place. I mean, politely asking you to help your half-sister decorate her room too? Sure. That's a reasonable thing to ask. But just guilt-tripping you into giving up your own room? As a Christmas gift? The hell? I would say Opie could be expected to help her sister decorate her room, but with the money of the parents. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter celebrate Christmas despite my husband and his family's disapproval? My female 32 brother-in-law passed away in 2018 on Christmas Day in an auto accident at the age of 24. He was in the military, and his death was so devastating for the family. My husband's family no longer celebrate Christmas. It's become a death anniversary, and I cannot express how last year's holidays were. Family is supposed to gather that day, and we're constantly reminded the reason we're all there is not to celebrate Christmas, but to mourn my brother-in-law. No gifts, no music, just people sitting quietly. Instead of Christmas decoration, there were pictures of my brother-in-law and candles. We weren't allowed to cook. Any meal we received was given away to neighbors. All I ever hear is, I'm sorry for your loss, instead of Merry Christmas. My daughter, 5, and her cousins got to watch Frozen on YouTube since TV was turned off at my in-laws. They got told to turn it down. My daughter made her grandma a sweet Christmas card, and I ended up being berated for not telling my daughter to make a card for her uncle. This may sound selfish, but the kids couldn't be happy, including my daughter. It was awful. I suggested a different way to celebrate this year, but still celebrate. They all vetoed my suggestion, and husband's mom told him to handle me. Like, huh? I received texts from in-laws telling to come over for the anniversary. I told my husband that I want our daughter to be happy and not experience what happened last year. My daughter begged her dad to take her somewhere and do some activities. He was just wrapped in his blanket, telling me to wake him up at 3 p.m. so we can go visit my in-laws. I baked cookies but was told to leave them at home. He said he'd buy gifts, but I shouldn't tell anyone, and he'd organize a secret gift exchange between family members. We arrived there and it was the same scene from last year. No food or music or gifts. I was upset, so we just had to sit for hours while everyone else enjoyed the holidays. I left with my daughter after my husband argued saying, "Suck it up, we won't be here next year." And I took her to the restaurant and enjoyed a meal and did some activities together. My mother-in-law started calling me to berate me. When I got home, and there was text from her and my sister-in-law calling me insensitive, cruel, heartless, shameless, etc. I got into an argument with my husband, saying I shouldn't have acted so selfishly and pretended like the family's loss was nothing to me and leave like that. He said that I should have made plans for another day, but I was stubborn. I argued with him that my daughter couldn't even eat at my in-laws, and he kept making excuses for them, telling me that I just ruined his relationship with his family. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Losing someone on Christmas Day is tough. Of course, it will never be the same again. But turning the day into a week every year won't bring him back. It just robs those still alive of joy. And don't we all need that after this year? There are ways to keep his memory alive while celebrating Christmas. If your parents-in-law prefer mourning that day, they're free to do so. They just shouldn't force it on everybody else, especially children. We're supposed to gather at their house and sit there for hours not doing anything. They can call me selfish, but I felt bad for how my daughter wanted to enjoy the holidays like the other kids, and I was berated, was called names, and they think that I don't care about their pain. It hurts, especially since my husband agreed with them instead of thinking about his daughter. Not Dayhall. Your kid is very young and deserves to enjoy the magic of Christmas, especially after this year. You're not Dayhall if you want her to enjoy the holiday. I do understand that the family has suffered a tragic and terrible loss, especially since your brother-in-law was so young, so it's pretty hard to celebrate the holidays, in particular if they coincide with the anniversary. In my opinion, it sounds a bit too much because from the way you describe it, it looks like they're holding a wake. I'm not judging here. Everyone, of course, faces grief differently. But asking little kids not to celebrate Christmas and have a fun day is, in my humble opinion, kinda wrong. I hope you understand what I mean. I don't mean any disrespect. Absolutely. My heart breaks for the other kids, and I wish I was allowed to take them to do some fun activities. But their mother, sister-in-law, is against that. I honestly don't understand why the kids should be robbed of joyful times. They're kids. They deserve to enjoy the holidays just like the other kids. This isn't fair. Now let's read the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my in-laws to keep their paws off my mother's house? When my 34 female father passed away 6 years ago, we were very well off. So my mom, brothers 29-26, and I ended up inheriting a lot. My brothers live abroad and didn't want the hassle of dealing with the property, so they signed their shares over to me. After discussing with them, I sold off all the properties except for a 1 BHK in an area that is at the outskirts of the city. That apartment was being occupied by a longtime employee of our family business, and we let them live there for free. With my money and some of the family money, I bought 2 flats, 3 bed, 3 bath, in a really nice building. It's got amazing security, a gym, a terrace garden, and a swimming pool, and is in a really nice location. I took 1 flat and my mom lives in the other. We are really close to our mom, and she's a super chill lady who has been the best mom we could have asked for. Our dad was very controlling and made her miserable, so we are determined to do whatever we can to really let her enjoy her life now. Now the issue. My husband 36 and I have been married for 3 years. He moved into my flat because his parents and brother live in a 2-bedroom flat and we have no space. Plus, my mother-in-law is not a fan of how I'm not subservient to my husband and I'm independent and run my own business. So we felt the space would be better. Now, 2 things have happened. My brother-in-law, 38, has gotten engaged, and our longtime employee has retired and is moving back to his hometown, which means that his flat is going to be empty. I guess husband mentioned it to my brother-in-law, who is now saying that I should move my mother into the 1 bedroom and let them, father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and future sister-in-law, move into my mother's flat. I refused. At most, I could probably let brother-in-law move into the 1-bedroom flat, but he doesn't want it because it's so far away from the city. Well, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law didn't like that I said no, so they went behind my back and asked my mom if she could move. My mom is a sweet lady, and she didn't want me to have issues with the in-laws, so she told me that she would be okay with moving. I was fuming mad, and I told my brothers, and they agreed that they would not want my mom to move. I was going to politely tell them no, but when they came over, I heard my mother-in-law and brother-in-law tell my husband that he was not a man, and how could he not support his family? That I was a controlling witch, and my mom was just a widow and didn't need much in life anyway. She should be grieving and not enjoying luxuries. I lost my cool and yelled at them to keep their paws off my mother's house, and to get out of mine too. My husband agreed that they were really rude and horrid, but also said that I shouldn't have yelled at his mother, and that he was trying to sort this amicably. I was still pissed, and told him I wanted nothing to do with people who spoke about me and my mom this way. So, am I the a-hole for blowing up at my in-laws and then telling my husband I want nothing to do with his family? Some more context because everyone is asking. My mom owns the flat she lives in. It's all in her name. I own the flat husband and I live in. The 1-bedroom flat is also in my name because it's technically company property and I'm the CEO. Not the a-hole. She should be grieving. What the actual hell? Your husband needs to handle his entitled relatives. I agree. They basically went, "You're sad. So, this is mine." Not the a-hole. After everything they have done, and from a legal perspective, do not allow any of them into your properties or you will be stuck with them for life. These are opportunistic people, and the fact that they went after your mother goes to show they'll never be anything other than trouble. If I understand this correctly, You are the owner of your mother's house, correct? If so, and if she pushes the issue, tell her if she wants to move, she can, but you will not rent to any other family. You may want to establish a professional relationship with an attorney to make sure you're covered on all ends. So, her flat is in her name, but she won't do anything like move out or sign it over to anyone without getting a go-ahead from all three of us, me and my brothers. My mom offered to move out because she thought it would make this peaceful, but after my brothers and I told her to stay put, she will not push the issue in any way. Why does this sound so typically DC to me? Not an a-hole OP. I'm Indian and relate hard to the fact that your dad was controlling, so you want to do everything you can to make your mom's life enjoyable. You don't owe your in-laws anything. If brother-in-law wants to be a real man, he can earn and provide for his family and pay his own goddamn rent. And going behind your back was extremely sneaky. Tell your in-laws to back off and do what you have to protect your mom. Definitely DC. Initially, my mother-in-law was so proud of having an independent daughter-in-law, but as soon as she realized that that meant that I made decisions too, she changed her tune pretty quickly. I told my mom also not to entertain any nonsense from them. We've told her to just say that she will have to ask my brothers for permission, since the only thing they understand is male authority. Now, for the last story, am I the a-hole for not allowing my grandmother around my baby because of something she lied about when I was 15? I'm currently 28, female. I am married with 3 kids, 4-year-old twin boys, a 3-month-old girl. My grandmother is 71, female. Back when I was 15, my mom had a set of twins, boy and girl. She was put on bed rest because the C-section she had went wrong, and she lost a lot of blood. Where she needed help and I went to school full-time, she invited my grandmother into our home, free of cost, to help her out. At some point or another, my mom had threatened to kick her out because every morning, my mom would check on her twins to find my brother missing. My gram, who is extremely overweight, had been taking my brother from his crib and was sleeping with him on her chest on the couch. My mom told her multiple times to stop and she refused, so my mom threatened to kick her out. My grandmother's way of retaliating was to tell my mother, who had extreme postpartum depression, that my sister, 2 months old at the time, rolled off the bed and fell onto the tile floors. This never happened. This obviously caused extreme panic on my mom's end, which made her spiral because she was already suffering from the postpartum. Because of this, I don't want my grandmother anywhere near my baby. I lived out of state when my twins were born, so she didn't see them until they were 2 years old, and she was never allowed around them alone. However, now that I live in the States and have a baby, she has been harping on me to let her meet my daughter. I kept telling her no, but gave no reason up until last night, when I reminded her that I witnessed her causing my mom unnecessary panic. I would not be allowing her near my child because I'm not going to chance her doing the same thing with me. My grandmother lost it and really tried saying that that scenario never happened and that we made it all up to make her look bad. A lot of the family has also sided with her. She told everyone and says that I need to let things go and stop living in the past. I have been told that I am alienating my grandmother and that I am going to destroy her by not letting her build a bond with my child. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. That is a huge breach of trust. And the fact that you can't let the past go isn't evidence of you needing to grow up. It's evidence that your grandmother messed up so badly, you are still dealing with this 13 years later. My wife and I have no end of toxic family on both sides, and fully support each other and anyone when it's necessary to go no contact. Contrary to what everyone says, you can choose family. Agree very much with this. OP learned a lesson based on the concrete behaviors. Further gaslighting trying to say OP didn't see what OP remembers seeing reinforces that there's a high chance it'll happen again. All reason says OP is smart. Not the a-hole. You are under no obligation to let her meet your kids. In fact, you'd be doing a disservice to your kids by letting her into their lives, no matter how brief a time. Stay strong and protect your babies. I have been told that I am alienating my grandmother. Just respond, yes, I am, on purpose. Grandma isn't entitled to a relationship with you or your kids. The fact that she won't admit that she did that to her daughter means she isn't willing to take responsibility for her actions. She's still trying to manipulate people, and it's an acceptable behavior. Not the a-hole.